Hey guys, tonight we follow a Roman worker through the most anticipated part of the day, the moment work is finally over. The sun is hanging low above tiled rooftops, your shoulders ache from hours of labor, and the city around you seems to exhale all at once. Shop shutters creak, sandals scrape across worn stone streets, and somewhere nearby, a food vendor is already shouting about hot snacks. You have survived another day in one of the busiest civilizations the ancient world has ever seen. Congratulations! You probably won't survive this if your idea of relaxation requires air conditioning, ergonomic chairs, and a phone battery above 20%. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're settling in, tell me your location and local time down in the comments. I'm always curious where in the world these sleepy history journeys are reaching. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The workday is ending. You stand among hundreds of other Romans doing exactly what you are doing, heading somewhere that is not work. That may sound obvious, but in a society where much of life revolves around labor, family obligations, social expectations, and survival, leisure feels precious. You are not walking home yet. Most Romans do not immediately retreat indoors when their duties are finished. The city itself becomes part of the evening. You move along a street paved with large stones, polished smooth by countless feet. Merchants are still packing away goods. Donkeys stubbornly block traffic as they have probably done since the invention of donkeys. A baker emerges from his shop dusted with flour. A porter stretches his back and groans dramatically enough to suggest he has personally carried the entire Roman Empire on his shoulders. Nearby, a carpenter wipes sweat from his brow and begins chatting with friends. For a few hours, social rank softens around the edges. Not completely, of course. Rome remains deeply conscious of status. A senator is still a senator, a laborer is still a laborer. Yet evening offers opportunities for different groups to share spaces and routines. One mainstream historical fact is that Romans commonly divided their day according to daylight hours. Because hours changed in length throughout the year, a summer hour could be longer than a winter one. The workday often ended during the afternoon, leaving time before darkness arrived. That spare time matters. Without televisions, video games, podcasts, or streaming services, entertainment must be found elsewhere. Fortunately, Roman cities are excellent at generating activity. You pass a small shrine tucked into a wall. Fresh flowers sit before a household deity. A woman pauses briefly to offer a prayer before continuing home. Religion is woven into everyday life. You do not necessarily separate sacred moments from ordinary moments. One minute you're discussing bread prices, the next minute you're asking divine forces to help your family avoid trouble. The city smells complicated. There's fresh bread, roasted meat, olive oil. There's also livestock and drains and whatever that smell is coming from the alley that everyone politely agrees not to investigate. Ancient cities rarely earned 5-star reviews from modern noses. As you continue walking, children dart between adults. Some chase hoops, others invent games whose rules appear to consist mainly of yelling. A dog naps beneath a cart. A vendor advertises honey cakes. Someone nearby is arguing about politics, proving that some human traditions never disappear no matter how many centuries pass. Historians still argue whether ordinary Romans enjoyed significantly more leisure time than many other ancient populations, or whether surviving records mainly reflect wealthier groups whose activities were more likely to be documented. That uncertainty follows us throughout Roman history. The voices we hear most clearly often belong to the wealthy, yet traces of everyday people survive in graffiti, legal records, letters, and archaeological discoveries.
These traces suggest that ordinary Romans valued leisure immensely. After work, people sought conversation, they sought food, they sought entertainment. Most importantly, they sought each other. Human beings have always wanted companionship after long days. You walk past apartment buildings known as insulae. Some rise several stories high. Residents lean from windows. Conversations drift downward into the street. One quirky tidbit from Roman life comes from graffiti found in places like Pompeii. Ancient walls preserved messages ranging from political endorsements to jokes, advertisements, declarations of love, and insults. In other words, some Roman walls functioned remarkably like social media comment sections. The quality of discussion was not always elevated. One famous inscription simply praises a particular person for being good at drinking. Academic discourse was apparently thriving. As shadows lengthen, the atmosphere changes. The busiest part of the workday is fading. People slow their pace. Conversations grow longer. You notice groups forming naturally. Friends find friends. Neighbors find neighbors. Co-workers continue debates begun hours earlier. Some Romans are already deciding where to spend the evening. Others have routines repeated countless times. Perhaps they will visit the baths. Perhaps they will stop at a tavern. Perhaps they will share dinner with family. Perhaps they will wander with no destination at all. That freedom feels important. Modern people often imagine ancient life as an endless sequence of hardship. Certainly, hardship exists. Disease, poverty, and uncertainty remain constant companions. Yet people still laugh. They still tell stories. They still seek pleasure in small moments. A man carrying fish nearly collides with another carrying wine. Both blame the other instantly. Neither appears interested in evidence. The argument lasts approximately 20 seconds before both continue walking. Some things never change. You continue through narrowing streets where evening sunlight reflects off plaster walls. The heat of the day is beginning to ease. This matters more than you think. Roman summers can be brutally warm. Finishing work often means escaping the worst conditions and enjoying cooler hours outdoors. Many public spaces become more attractive as temperatures fall. You can almost feel the city preparing for its second life. The daytime Rome of labor, trade, and official business slowly gives way to the Rome of leisure. Musicians tune instruments. Food vendors prepare evening customers. Bath attendants organize supplies. Tavern keepers check their stock. Families begin gathering. The city is not winding down, it is transforming. And like countless Romans before you, your evening is only beginning. Tonight's path leads first to one of the most beloved institutions in the entire Roman world, a place where workers, merchants, politicians, athletes, and dreamers all eventually find themselves. The baths await.
The baths await. You follow the steady flow of people moving through the streets, and before long it becomes obvious that half the city seems to be heading in the same direction. Some walk with purpose, others stroll lazily, enjoying the cooling air. A few carry small bundles containing towels, oil flasks, or spare clothing. Nobody looks particularly surprised by the crowd. That is because public bathing is not some occasional luxury. For many Romans, it is part of daily life. The building rises ahead of you, larger than many modern visitors expect. If you have grown up imagining ancient baths as little rooms with a tub in the corner, prepare for disappointment. Roman bath complexes can be enormous. Some contain exercise yards, gardens, libraries, meeting halls, and elaborate pools of different temperatures. You approach the entrance among merchants, craftsmen, laborers, and well-dressed citizens. One of the most famous historical facts about Roman life is that public baths served as major social centers. They were places to wash, certainly, but they were also places to meet friends, conduct business, discuss politics, hear gossip, and simply spend time among other people. Think of them as part gym,
part spa, part community center, and part social network, only with significantly more marble and fewer password resets. Inside, voices echo against stone walls. The atmosphere is lively rather than quiet. Modern spas often encourage whispers and peaceful silence. Roman baths can sound more like busy public squares. People laugh, children splash, friends argue, vendors sell refreshments. Someone somewhere is undoubtedly explaining why his chariot racing predictions were correct, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. You enter a changing area where visitors store clothing before moving deeper into the complex. Oil lamps flicker against polished surfaces. Attendants move efficiently through the crowd. Steam drifts through archways. The entire place feels alive. You begin in the exercise yard. Many bathgoers prefer physical activity before washing. Men throw balls, wrestle, jog, or practice simple exercises. Not everyone participates. Plenty of people simply watch. Ancient spectators are every bit as enthusiastic as modern ones. A man misses an easy catch. 3 strangers immediately become experts on what he should have done. Civilization remains consistent. As you move through the complex, you notice how carefully designed everything is. The Romans are remarkable engineers. Their baths rely on sophisticated heating systems known today as hypocausts. Beneath floors, hot air circulates through spaces created by small pillars. Warmth rises through walls and rooms, creating heated environments that impress visitors even thousands of years later. Historians continue to marvel at how advanced these systems were. Imagine walking into a comfortably heated room nearly 2,000 years ago and realizing somebody figured out central heating while much of the world was still focused on simpler technologies. Eventually, you enter a warm room. The temperature encourages relaxation. People sit on benches discussing everything from local scandals to grain prices. Politics appears frequently. Roman politics is never far away. Even if you desperately wish to enjoy a peaceful evening, someone nearby will eventually mention a senator, then another senator, then 10 more senators. Soon, everyone is debating public affairs. You suspect some conversations have been continuing uninterrupted since approximately AD 8.
The baths await. You follow the steady flow of people moving through the streets, and before long it becomes obvious that half the city seems to be heading in the same direction. Some walk with purpose, others stroll lazily, enjoying the cooling air. A few carry small bundles containing towels, oil flasks, or spare clothing. Nobody looks particularly surprised by the crowd. That is because public bathing is not some occasional luxury. For many Romans, it is part of daily life. The building rises ahead of you, larger than many modern visitors expect. If you have grown up imagining ancient baths as little rooms with a tub in the corner, prepare for disappointment. Roman bath complexes can be enormous. Some contain exercise yards, gardens, libraries, meeting halls, and elaborate pools of different temperatures. You approach the entrance among merchants, craftsmen, laborers, and well-dressed citizens. One of the most famous historical facts about Roman life is that public baths served as major social centers. They were places to wash, certainly, but they were also places to meet friends, conduct business, discuss politics, hear gossip, and simply spend time among other people. Think of them as part gym, part spa, part community center, and part social network, only with significantly more marble and fewer password resets. Inside, voices echo against stone walls. The atmosphere is lively rather than quiet. Modern spas often encourage whispers and peaceful silence. Roman baths can sound more like busy public squares. People laugh, children splash, friends argue, vendors sell refreshments. Someone somewhere is undoubtedly explaining why his chariot racing predictions were correct, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary.
You enter a changing area where visitors store clothing before moving deeper into the complex. Oil lamps flicker against polished surfaces. Attendants move efficiently through the crowd. Steam drifts through archways. The entire place feels alive. You begin in the exercise yard. Many bathgoers prefer physical activity before washing. Men throw balls, wrestle, jog, or practice simple exercises. Not everyone participates. Plenty of people simply watch. Ancient spectators are every bit as enthusiastic as modern ones. A man misses an easy catch. 3 strangers immediately become experts on what he should have done. Civilization remains consistent. As you move through the complex, you notice how carefully designed everything is. The Romans are remarkable engineers. Their baths rely on sophisticated heating systems known today as hypocausts. Beneath floors, hot air circulates through spaces created by small pillars. Warmth rises through walls and rooms, creating heated environments that impress visitors even thousands of years later. Historians continue to marvel at how advanced these systems were. Imagine walking into a comfortably heated room nearly 2,000 years ago and realizing somebody figured out central heating while much of the world was still focused on simpler technologies. Eventually, you enter a warm room. The temperature encourages relaxation. People sit on benches discussing everything from local scandals to grain prices. Politics appears frequently. Roman politics is never far away. Even if you desperately wish to enjoy a peaceful evening, someone nearby will eventually mention a senator, then another senator, then 10 more senators. Soon, everyone is debating public affairs. You suspect some conversations have been continuing uninterrupted since approximately AD 80. A group nearby discusses military campaigns. Another argues about taxes. A third appears focused entirely on whether a neighbor's goat has become excessively aggressive. All topics are treated with equal seriousness. One quirky tidbit from Roman bath culture involves strigils. Rather than using soap in the modern sense, many Romans coat their skin with oil and then scrape away dirt using curved metal tools called strigils. To modernize, this can seem unusual. To Romans, it is perfectly normal. You watch bath attendants demonstrate impressive efficiency. Scrape, wipe, repeat. The process removes sweat, dust, and grime accumulated throughout the day. It is oddly satisfying to observe, though perhaps less satisfying if you are the dirt. As you continue, steam thickens. The hot rooms are bustling. Water glimmers beneath torchlight. Conversations echo across pools. Some visitors clearly come for cleanliness. Others are here almost entirely for social reasons. Business deals happen here. Friendships grow here. Rumors spread here at astonishing speeds. If somebody in town has done something embarrassing, there's an excellent chance half the bath complex knows before sunset. The Roman information network operates with remarkable efficiency. No internet required. You lower yourself into warm water. Muscles loosen. The aches of the workday begin to fade. For a moment, the concerns of daily life drift away. This feeling is part of the bath's appeal. The experience offers physical comfort, social connection, and mental relief. In a world where work can be exhausting and uncertainty common, these moments matter. Historians still argue whether bathing every day was truly universal among ordinary Romans, or whether some descriptions exaggerate participation based on urban populations. Rural communities likely followed different patterns, and not everyone had equal access. Even so, archaeological evidence suggests bathing played a central role across much of Roman society.
Finding something delicious to eat. The moment you leave the baths, your stomach reminds you that relaxation is pleasant, but food is essential. The warm pools, the exercise yard, the endless conversations about politics and aggressive goats have all accomplished one thing very effectively. They have made you hungry. You step back into the evening streets, now glowing with the soft light of oil lamps and the fading colors of sunset. The city feels different than it did only a few hours ago. Work has loosened its grip. People move at a gentler pace. Well, most people. A man carrying 6 baskets somehow manages to look extremely busy despite the hour. Perhaps there is no escaping deadlines, even in ancient Rome. The streets are alive with smells. Fresh bread, roasted meat, garlic, olives, fish sauce, more fish sauce, an amount of fish sauce that would probably concern your doctor. One mainstream historical fact about Roman cuisine is the popularity of garum, a fermented fish sauce used throughout the Roman world. Romans added it to countless dishes. Rich households bought expensive versions. Ordinary people often used more affordable varieties. To Roman taste buds, garum improved almost everything. To some modern noses, it sounds like a chemistry experiment that escaped supervision. You follow the aroma of baking bread toward a busy stall. Bread is one of the foundations of Roman life. In fact, grain supplies are so important that governments pay close attention to them. Cities depend on reliable food distribution. A shortage can quickly become a serious problem. You purchase a simple snack, nothing extravagant, just enough to satisfy immediate hunger. The vendor works quickly, serving a steady stream of customers. Food vendors occupy an important place in Roman urban life. Many people live in apartment buildings with limited cooking facilities. Buying prepared food can be easier than cooking at home. As a result, the evening streets become full of opportunities to grab something warm and filling. You continue wandering. Part of the pleasure lies in not hurrying. Ancient cities are often imagined as serious places devoted entirely to work, war, and politics. Yet, ordinary evenings reveal something different. People enjoy themselves. They linger. They socialize. They browse. They gossip. A group of friends stands outside a stall debating which snack is best. The discussion has apparently reached philosophical levels. Nobody seems willing to surrender. Civilizations rise and fall. Arguments about food remain eternal. A nearby merchant displays fruit imported from distant regions. Trade networks stretch across astonishing distances. Goods arrive from Africa, Asia, Europe, and beyond. The empire is present even in small purchases. Children weave through the crowd. Street performers attract attention. A musician plucks a melody on a stringed instrument, while nearby listeners toss small coins into a bowl. The tune drifts through the evening air. It mixes with conversations, footsteps, animal noises, and distant laughter. The result is not quiet, but it is alive. Historians still argue whether Roman cities were consistently as crowded and noisy as some ancient writers claimed, or whether authors occasionally exaggerated conditions for dramatic effect. Ancient authors enjoyed complaining, especially about cities, especially about other people, especially about cities full of other people. Some traditions survive every century. You pass a small tavern entrance. Voices spill onto the street. Inside, customers are already gathering. You make a mental note to return later. There is no need to rush. The evening still has plenty of time left. One quirky tidbit from Roman archaeology comes from Pompeii, where preserved food shops known as thermopolia have been discovered. These establishments featured counters with built-in containers holding prepared foods and drinks. In some ways, they resemble ancient fast food restaurants. Imagine grabbing dinner from a street counter nearly 2,000 years ago. The technology changes. Human behavior stays surprisingly familiar. You stop near a cellar offering honey-coated treats. The temptation proves difficult to resist. Ancient desserts may not always resemble modern ones, but sweetness remains universally appealing. Nearby, 2 customers attempt to negotiate prices.
The merchant responds with theatrical despair. The customers respond with theatrical disappointment. Neither side appears sincere. Everyone understands the performance. Negotiation itself is part of the entertainment. The evening grows darker. More lamps appear. Golden light reflects from windows and shop fronts. The changing atmosphere softens the streets. Hard edges become gentler. The pace becomes calmer. You notice families walking together. Neighbors pause for conversation. Friends gather at corners. Workers who spent all day focused on responsibilities now reclaim a few hours for themselves. These moments matter. Life expectancy is shorter than in many modern societies. Illness remains common. Economic uncertainty never disappears completely. Yet, because life can be difficult, leisure becomes even more valuable. Pleasure is not merely indulgence. It is relief. It is connection. It is a reminder that existence contains more than labor. A storyteller has gathered a small audience nearby. Children sit cross-legged on the ground. Adults stand behind them. The tale involves heroes, monsters, and impossible adventures. Judging by audience reactions, the storyteller is either exceptionally talented or dramatically improving the original material. Possibly both. You pause to listen. Stories occupy a special place in Roman culture. Long before television or cinema, narrative itself serves as entertainment. People gather to hear myths, legends, historical accounts, and local tales. A good storyteller can command attention as effectively as any modern performer. The crowd laughs, gasps, leans forward. For a few moments, everyone shares the same imagined world. Then the story ends. Coins change hands. The audience disperses. The evening continues. You resume walking. The city seems endless. Every street contains another conversation, another vendor, another distraction, another opportunity to stay out just a little longer. The smell of roasting food grows stronger as you approach a busier district. Customers gather around stalls serving hot meals. Steam rises into the cooling air. The sight is irresistible. Your earlier snack no longer seems sufficient. Ancient hunger, much like modern hunger, has remarkable powers of persuasion. You purchase another small bite, purely for historical accuracy, of course. Nearby, a dog watches hopefully. Its expression suggests years of experience convincing humans to share food. The strategy appears effective. The dog wins, humanity loses. As darkness settles more fully over the city, attention begins shifting toward the next phase of the evening. Markets remain active. Food remains available. But now conversations grow louder near taverns and gathering places. Friends are meeting. Wine is being poured. Dice are appearing. The social heart of Roman nightlife is beginning to beat faster. And before long, you find yourself drawn toward the warm glow and cheerful noise spilling from an inviting tavern doorway.
The warm glow spilling from the tavern doorway feels almost magnetic. You have already eaten a little, wandered through busy markets, listened to stories, and enjoyed the cooler evening air. Yet the night is still young by Roman standards, and many people are only now arriving at their favorite gathering places. The tavern stands at a busy corner. Laughter drifts through the entrance. So does the smell of wine and roasted food, and at least one conversation that sounds dangerously close to becoming a debate about chariot racing. You step inside. The room is crowded but welcoming. Oil lamps cast pools of golden light across wooden tables. Clay cups clink. Conversations overlap. People lean forward as they talk, gesture dramatically, interrupt one another, and then continue speaking as though interruptions were simply part of the language. Perhaps they are. A mainstream historical fact is that Roman taverns, often called popine or similar names depending on the establishment, served food and drink to a wide variety of customers.
Not every Roman spent evenings in taverns, but they were common features of urban life. Some enjoyed respectable reputations. Others did not. Ancient writers frequently complained about taverns. Then again, ancient writers frequently complained about everything: the weather, politics, young people, foreigners, neighbors, noise. You begin to suspect that complaining may have been one of Rome's most popular hobbies. A friend waves you over to a table. Soon you are seated among a lively group. Wine arrives. Conversation follows. Roman wine is rarely consumed exactly the way many modern people imagine. It is often mixed with water before drinking. Strength varies, quality varies. Opinions vary dramatically. One man insists today's wine is excellent. Another claims it tastes like something a mule would reject. The discussion becomes surprisingly passionate. Nobody changes their mind. This outcome surprises no one. You sip carefully and settle into the atmosphere. This is not merely drinking, it is social bonding. Relationships are maintained through shared time together. Stories are exchanged, news travels, friendships deepen, arguments flourish. A merchant describes a profitable transaction. A laborer complains about a difficult customer. Someone claims to know somebody who knows somebody connected to an important official. Nobody can verify any of it. The story improves with each retelling. Across the room, a group has gathered around a dice game. Interest immediately spreads. Gambling exists throughout Roman society, despite periodic efforts to regulate or restrict it. People enjoy testing luck. People have always enjoyed testing luck. You move closer to watch. The players concentrate intensely. The stakes are modest. The emotions are not. A successful roll inspires celebration. An unsuccessful roll inspires dramatic despair. One player reacts as though fate itself has personally betrayed him. The loss appears to equal approximately the value of a decent lunch. Perspective can be difficult during competition. Historians still argue whether gambling restrictions significantly reduced participation or merely encouraged people to become more creative in how and when they played. Human beings have never lacked creativity when rules interfere with entertainment. The game continues. Spectators offer advice. Players ignore most of it. The relationship between athletes and spectators was apparently established long before modern sports. One quirky tidbit from Roman gaming culture involves loaded dice. Archaeologists have discovered examples that appear intentionally altered to improve outcomes. Apparently, even ancient gamblers occasionally preferred good fortune with a little mechanical assistance. Some traditions are disappointingly durable. The evening grows louder. More customers arrive. A musician enters carrying a small instrument. Before long, melodies drift through the tavern. Nothing formal, nothing grand, just enough music to enrich the atmosphere. Several customers attempt singing. Results vary considerably. One possesses genuine talent. Another possesses confidence. History suggests these qualities do not always travel together. Your table erupts in laughter as someone tells a story involving an unfortunate donkey, an overconfident merchant, and a broken cart. The details become increasingly improbable. Nobody objects. The purpose of a good story is not always accuracy. Sometimes it is simply enjoyment. That realization feels familiar. The room is full of people who worked all day: builders, porters, craftsmen, shopkeepers, clerks. Their responsibilities differ, but they share a common desire to unwind. The tavern provides exactly that, a temporary escape from obligations. Not complete freedom. Tomorrow still exists. Bills still exist. Work still exists. But tonight, those concerns remain slightly farther away. You notice conversations shifting from practical matters toward broader subjects. Philosophy appears at one table, sports at another. Politics inevitably resurfaces somewhere near the center of the room. Rome's political culture reaches astonishing levels of public engagement. People discuss leaders, policies, military campaigns, and public affairs with remarkable enthusiasm. Whether their information is accurate remains a separate question. A man confidently predicts future events. Future historians would probably advise caution. Nearby, another group discusses chariot racing. Now there is genuine passion. The races inspire enormous loyalty throughout the Roman world. Fans support different factions with intensity that would feel familiar to modern sports enthusiasts. Arguments about teams can continue for hours, sometimes days, possibly generations. You wisely avoid choosing sides. Ancient sports fans are not known for moderation. Outside, darkness deepens. Inside, the lamps glow brighter. The contrast creates a cozy atmosphere. For a moment, the tavern feels almost separate from the wider world, a little island of warmth and companionship. People come and go, new conversations begin, old ones continue. Time passes almost unnoticed. That may be one of leisure's greatest gifts, the ability to forget the clock, or in this case, the sundial. A final round of drinks arrives. Not everyone drinks heavily. Many simply enjoy the social environment. The point is not intoxication. The point is participation, being part of something larger than yourself. Sharing an evening with people whose company makes life more enjoyable. As the hour grows later, some customers prepare to head home. Others are only beginning their night. You step outside once more. Cool air greets you. The city remains active. Lamps flicker in windows. Footsteps echo along stone streets. Voices carry through the darkness. And now another important decision awaits. The evening meal is approaching. Not a quick snack from a market stall. Not a bite grabbed between errands. A proper dinner. For Romans, dinner can be the social centerpiece of the entire day. And somewhere nearby, beneath flickering lamplight, tables are being prepared.
The evening meal is approaching. Not a quick bite from a street stall. Not a piece of bread eaten while walking through the market. Not a piece of honey cake purchased because you absolutely, definitely needed it for historical research. A proper dinner. For many Romans, this is the most important meal of the day. The streets remain busy as you leave the tavern behind. Lamps flicker in windows. Shadows stretch across stone roads polished by centuries of footsteps. Somewhere a dog barks. Somewhere else, a musician is still attempting the same tune for what feels like the 15th consecutive performance. You head toward a friend's home. Not everyone eats dinner the same way, of course. The wealthy enjoy extravagant banquets that become famous for their luxury. Ordinary Romans usually have simpler meals. Yet regardless of social class, the evening meal often serves as a moment of connection. Food is rarely just food. It is conversation. It is family. It is friendship. It is community. A mainstream historical fact is that the Roman evening meal, often called cena, gradually became the main meal of the day. Wealthier Romans could turn it into elaborate social events lasting for hours, while ordinary households generally enjoyed more modest versions. You arrive at a modest residence. Warm light spills through the doorway. Inside, several guests have already gathered. The atmosphere is relaxed. No one appears rushed. The workday is over. That matters. A simple table has been prepared. Bread sits in baskets. Olives rest in small bowls. Vegetables, cheese, and other foods await hungry visitors. Nothing here would impress an emperor. Everything here is appreciated. You take a seat. Conversation flows naturally. Stories from the day emerge first. Someone describes an annoying customer. Someone else complains about a stubborn mule. The mule is not present to defend itself. Its reputation suffers accordingly. Laughter spreads around the room.
Ancient dinner conversations often sound surprisingly familiar. People discuss work, neighbors, family, money, local news, future plans, small victories, small frustrations. The details change from century to century. The topics rarely do. A young child excitedly recounts an event that becomes less believable with every sentence. By the end, you suspect the story may involve at least 3 heroic dogs, a runaway cart, and possibly a sea monster. No one interrupts. This is clearly excellent entertainment. As dishes are passed around, you notice how food encourages conversation. People linger, they share, they listen. In a world without many modern distractions, face-to-face interaction remains central to daily life. There is something comforting about that. Historians still argue whether literary descriptions of Roman dinners accurately represent everyday experiences, or whether surviving accounts are heavily biased towards wealthier households whose activities were more likely to be recorded. The challenge appears often in Roman history. The rich leave more documents, the ordinary leave fewer. Yet archaeology continues revealing glimpses of everyday life: simple utensils, cooking pots, food remains, dining spaces. Together they help reconstruct evenings like this one. A guest mentions an upcoming festival. Another recalls a memorable celebration from years earlier. The discussion gradually shifts towards memories. Everyone has stories. Everyone has opinions. Not all opinions are equally useful. One guest confidently explains a topic about which he clearly knows very little. His confidence remains impressive. Evidence remains optional. Human nature once again proves remarkably ancient. One quirky tidbit comes from Roman banquet culture among the wealthy. Certain elite dining rooms featured elaborate decorations, fountains, artworks, and even mechanical surprises designed to impress guests. Certain hosts seemed determined to transform dinner into theater. Modern people sometimes spend too much on dinner parties. Ancient elites occasionally treated moderation as a personal enemy. Fortunately, tonight's gathering is much simpler. No mechanical surprises, no imported peacocks, no fountains shaped like mythical creatures. Just food and companionship. Honestly, it sounds more relaxing. The meal continues. Outside, the city slowly grows quieter. Not silent. Rome rarely becomes truly silent, but calmer. The busiest energy of evening begins to soften. Foot traffic decreases. Merchants close shops. Families settle indoors. The rhythm of the city changes again. You find yourself reflecting on the day. Work feels distant now. The baths, the markets, the tavern, the conversations. Each activity has helped create a gradual transition from labor to leisure. The Romans understand something important. Relaxation does not always happen instantly. Sometimes it unfolds in stages. A walk, a bath, a meal, a conversation, a laugh, a story. Little by little, tension fades. Someone pours another drink. Another story begins. The room grows warmer, the voices softer, the atmosphere gentler. You notice how the lamplight dances across walls and faces. The flickering glow smooths rough edges. Everything feels slower, more peaceful, more distant from the pressures of the day. The evening has reached that pleasant point where nobody wants to leave immediately. Nobody is watching a clock. Nobody is hurrying toward the next obligation. For a little while, simply being present feels enough. A child begins to yawn, then another. Adults pretend not to notice. The children pretend not to be tired. Neither side is particularly convincing. Outside, stars emerge overhead. The night sky appears far clearer than many modern city dwellers experience. Without electric lights flooding the horizon, countless stars become visible. Romans look upward and see a sky crowded with stories, constellations, gods, heroes, legends. The heavens themselves seem alive with narrative. Inside, the gathering gradually begins winding down. Guests stretch, conversations become quieter. Some prepare to head home, others linger a little longer. No one seems eager for the evening to end. And perhaps that feeling is universal. Across centuries, after a long day of work, people cherish these final hours, the moments when responsibilities loosen, the moments when companionship replaces obligation, the moments when life feels a little softer. As the night deepens, your thoughts become calmer. The city beyond the walls grows more distant. The voices around you become a gentle background hum. And now, before we continue further into Rome's nighttime world, let the pace slow for a while. Let the streets fade. Let the lamps dim. Let the city drift quietly into the distance. The night air feels cooler now. You imagine yourself walking home beneath a sky scattered with stars, your footsteps soft against ancient stone. The sounds of the city are still there, but farther away than before. A distant conversation, a cart rolling somewhere beyond sight, the faint bark of a dog who seems to be determined to remain awake longer than everyone else. The day's work is behind you. The crowds are behind you. Even the laughter from the tavern had begun to dissolve into memory. You carry only the gentle rhythm of the evening, a warm meal, friendly voices, the comforting sense that for a few hours at least, nothing more is required of you. The lamps glow softly in windows. A breeze stirs through narrow streets. Somewhere above, stars continue their slow journey across the sky, entirely unconcerned with deadlines, taxes, or stubborn mules. You breathe a little easier. You walk a little slower. The city seems wrapped in a blanket of quiet gold and silver light. The worries of tomorrow remain safely on the other side of sleep. There will be work again. There will be responsibilities again, but not tonight. Tonight belongs to stillness, to warm memories, to gentle thoughts, to the simple comfort of knowing that another day has been completed. So let the streets grow softer. Let the voices drift farther away. Let the lamps become tiny points of light in the darkness, and let yourself settle into the calm, steady rhythm of an ancient Roman night where the world finally grows quiet enough for rest.
The lamps become tiny points of light in the darkness. For a few moments, you simply enjoy the calm. Then you remember something important. Rome is not asleep, not even close. While many households are settling in for the night, large portions of the city remain active. The evening meal may have been the centerpiece of the day, but for countless Romans, entertainment still awaits. You step back into the streets. The air is cooler now. The stone beneath your sandals has finally surrendered the heat it absorbed during the afternoon. Voices still echo from nearby buildings. Somewhere ahead, a crowd is gathering. Curiosity pulls you forward. It usually does. And in Rome, curiosity often leads to surprisingly interesting places. A mainstream historical fact is that public entertainment occupied an important place in Roman life. The empire invested enormous resources into spectacles, performances, festivals, and public amusements. Not every event happened every night, of course, but opportunities for entertainment were common in major cities. You follow the sound of music. A small crowd has formed around several performers. Nothing official, nothing sponsored by wealthy patrons, just talented entertainers earning attention the old-fashioned way. One musician plays a reed instrument, while another keeps rhythm with a small drum. Nearby, an acrobat performs balancing tricks. Children watch with wide eyes. Adults pretend to be more dignified. The adults fail. Everyone enjoys the show. Coins occasionally drop into a collection bowl. The performers bow dramatically. The audience applauds. For a few minutes, ordinary worries disappear. Entertainment can be surprisingly powerful. You notice how people from different walks of life mingle together: laborers, merchants, travelers, craftsmen, visitors from distant regions. The Roman Empire connects an astonishing variety of cultures. Languages and accents mix in the crowd. Clothing styles vary. Yet everyone understands the universal language of watching somebody almost fall off a balancing pole. The acrobat recovers at the last second. The crowd erupts in relief and perhaps mild disappointment. Human beings have always enjoyed a little suspense. You continue wandering. The streets are alive with performers. Storytellers attract listeners. Musicians gather audiences. Poets occasionally recite their work. Results vary. Some poets inspire admiration. Others inspire polite endurance. A listener nearby appears trapped in a poem that may never end. You silently wish him luck. One quirky tidbit from Roman entertainment comes from trained animal acts. Ancient sources occasionally describe performances involving animals taught to perform unusual tricks. Some accounts even mention birds trained to imitate human speech. Whether the birds fully understood what they were saying remains uncertain, though modern parrots, if any indication, they were probably repeating something embarrassing. The crowd moves toward a larger public space. You follow. Large open areas remain popular gathering spots after sunset. Friends meet there. Neighbors exchange news. Performers seek audiences. The city itself becomes a stage. The atmosphere feels festive despite the absence of any major holiday. Perhaps that is because Romans understand how to create entertainment from ordinary evenings. A talented storyteller begins recounting a famous myth. You recognize parts of the tale: heroes, gods, monsters, impossible journeys. Ancient audiences never seem to tire of these stories. The storyteller uses dramatic gestures. Children lean forward. Adults smile knowingly. Everyone knows what happens next. Everyone listens anyway. Good stories are like old friends. You do not visit them because you need new information. You visit them because their company feels familiar. Historians still argue whether ordinary Romans experienced entertainment primarily through informal local performances like these, or through larger organized spectacles. The answer was probably both, varying greatly according to region, wealth, and opportunity. Rome contains many Romes. The experience of a senator differs from that of a baker. The experience of a provincial villager differs from that of an urban merchant. Yet enjoyment remains universal. The storyteller finishes. Applause follows. A child immediately begins retelling the story to another child. The new version somehow includes twice as many monsters. Creative adaptation is alive and well. You move on. Ahead, music drifts from another gathering. This group appears less interested in listening and more interested in participating. Several people are dancing, not professionally, not gracefully, enthusiastically. There is a difference. The distinction becomes especially clear when one dancer nearly collides with a fruit seller. Fortunately, both parties survived. The fruit survived. History is spared a very small tragedy. As the evening deepens, the city develops a dreamlike quality. Torchlight flickers against walls. Shadows move across plazas. Voices rise and fall. The boundaries between performer and audience sometimes blur. People join songs. They tell stories. They share jokes. They become part of the entertainment themselves. You realize that much of Roman leisure depends on participation. This is not a world where most people sit quietly consuming entertainment created by distant professionals. Entertainment often happens because ordinary people contribute to it. A joke, a song, a story, a performance, a conversation. The city creates itself every night. The stars shine overhead. The moon hangs above rooftops. The crowds gradually thin as some people head home.
yet others continue onward. And among them are those returning to the place where Roman life ultimately centers. Not markets, not taverns, not public squares. Home. Because after the performers leave and the stories end, another side of Roman evenings begins behind closed doors. The quieter side, the family side, the side most visitors never see.
The quieter side, the family side, the side most visitors never see. You leave the public spaces behind and turn toward home. The streets are calmer now, not empty, but calmer. The loudest conversations have faded into the distance. Most merchants have closed their stalls. Even the dogs seem slightly less committed to announcing their opinions to the entire city. The city that felt enormous a few hours ago now feels more personal. Windows glow softly above narrow streets. Doorways open and close. Families gather indoors. Neighbors exchange final greetings before settling in for the night. You climb a staircase leading to an apartment building, one of the many insulae that house much of Rome's urban population. The stairs creak. The walls bear signs of years of use. Somewhere above, someone is moving furniture at an hour that seems deeply inconsiderate. Apparently, upstairs neighbors were invented long before modern apartment buildings. You reach the family's living space. It is modest, not luxurious, not especially large, but it is home. A mainstream historical fact is that many urban Romans lived in apartment blocks called insulae. These buildings could house numerous families and varied greatly in quality. Wealthier residents often occupied lower floors, while poorer tenants frequently lived higher up. Space is valuable. Privacy is limited. Life is shared. Inside, the atmosphere feels completely different from the public world outside. The city may celebrate crowds, but home celebrates familiarity. Children are winding down from the day. Parents are finishing small household tasks. Visitors visit. Neighbors occasionally stop by. The pace slows. You notice how much Roman family life revolves around cooperation. Everyone contributes something. One person organizes supplies. Another repairs clothing. Someone else prepares items needed for tomorrow. Daily life requires constant attention, yet these tasks are not always unpleasant. Done together, they become opportunities for conversation. A grandmother tells stories while working. A father discusses tomorrow's plans. Children ask endless questions. Some of the questions are thoughtful. Others seem specifically designed to challenge the patience of adults. That tradition also survives every century. You sit and listen. The room is lit by oil lamps. Their glow creates a warm atmosphere that softens everything it touches. Shadows move gently across walls. Voices remain low. The evening meal may be finished, but social time continues. A child proudly presents a handmade toy. Another demonstrates a game learned from friends earlier that day. Parents offer encouragement. Relatives offer advice. The toy appears unlikely to survive the week. Everyone pretends otherwise. Family life often depends upon optimism. Historians still argue whether Roman households were generally close-knit emotional units in the modern sense, or whether practical obligations played a larger role than affection in family relationships. The truth was probably complicated. Love existed. Duty existed. Expectation existed. Like families everywhere, Roman households contained a mixture of emotions. Some relationships were warm. Some were strained. Most were somewhere in between. A quirky tidbit from Roman domestic life involves household gods known as lares. Many Roman homes contained small shrines where families honored protective spirits associated with the household. These shrines served as reminders that home was not merely a physical place, it was also a spiritual one. You notice a small shrine in the corner, nothing elaborate, just a quiet presence woven into daily life. Religion here feels intimate, personal, part of ordinary routines. Outside, the sounds of the city continue to fade. Inside, stories begin, and Romans love stories. An older relative recalls events from years ago. Perhaps the details have changed slightly with each retelling. Perhaps slightly is being generous. By now, a fishing trip may have become an epic voyage. A minor disagreement may have become a heroic confrontation. Memory is a creative partner. Nobody seems concerned. The purpose is enjoyment. The children listen with fascination. Adults exchange knowing smiles. Everyone understands the performance. You find yourself appreciating these simple moments. When people think about Rome, they often imagine emperors, gladiators, generals, and monuments. They imagine massive arenas and political intrigue. They rarely imagine an ordinary family sharing stories by lamplit. Yet most Romans never commanded armies. Most never addressed the Senate. Most never shaped history books. They simply lived, worked, laughed, raised children, maintained friendships, worried about tomorrow, much like people today. The realization makes the ancient world feel surprisingly familiar. A child begins to grow sleepy, then another. Soon yawns spread through the room with remarkable efficiency. Yawns may be humanity's most successful form of communication. No translation required. The younger members of the household are gradually sent toward bed. Resistance occurs. Negotiations occur. The negotiations fail. Parents across history appear to possess considerable experience in this area. As the children settle down, conversations among adults become quieter. Topics shift. Finances, work, family matters, news from relatives, plans for upcoming festivals. These concerns of everyday life return, though in softer form than during the workday. These discussions help hold communities together. Information spreads, support is offered, problems are shared, solutions are suggested. Not always good solutions, but suggestions arrive in abundance. Outside, the moon has climbed higher. The streets are now noticeably quieter. The city has not stopped. Night workers remain active. Travelers still move through the darkness. Watchmen continue their duties. Yet for many households, the day is ending. You look around the room. The lamplight, the familiar faces, the gentle conversations, the sense of belonging. These things matter more than monuments, more than politics, more than public achievements. For countless Romans, this is the true reward waiting at the end of a long day. Not fame, not wealth, simply home. And as the evening grows later, thoughts begin turning toward more private matters, relationships, courtship, affection, and the personal connections that shape lives beyond the view of crowds and public records.
The lamplight flickers softly as conversations begin to thin. Some family members have already retired for the night. Others linger a little longer, enjoying the quiet comfort that settles over a household after the busiest hours have passed. Outside, the city is still awake. Inside, life becomes more personal, more private, more difficult for historians to see. That is the challenge with relationships in the ancient world. Public buildings leave ruins, governments leave records, armies leave monuments. Affection often leaves only traces, a letter, a poem, a piece of jewelry, a scribbled message on a wall. Yet those traces reveal something important. Romans, like people in every age, cared deeply about one another. They formed friendships, they married, they flirted, they argued, they missed absent loved ones, they worried about family members, they hoped for happy futures. The details differed, the emotions did not. A mainstream historical fact
is that marriage played a central role in Roman society. Families often viewed it as both a personal relationship and a practical partnership that connected households, property, and social standing. Not every marriage began with romance. Many were arranged or heavily influenced by family considerations. Yet affection could certainly grow within them. Ancient letters occasionally revealed genuine tenderness between spouses. You sit quietly while the household settles into its nighttime rhythm. A couple discusses plans for tomorrow. Nothing dramatic, nothing poetic, just ordinary life. Food to purchase, tasks to complete, relatives to visit. Sometimes affection reveals itself not through grand declarations, but through shared routines, through remembering small details, through helping carry burdens, through asking whether someone had a difficult day. History books rarely celebrate such moments, yet most lives are built from them. You think about young Romans navigating courtship. That process can be complicated. Parents often possess strong opinions. Relatives possess additional opinions. Neighbors contribute even more opinions, despite nobody asking them. Entire communities sometimes seem eager to participate. Privacy is a rare luxury in crowded urban environments. One quirky tidbit comes from Roman graffiti, particularly at Pompeii, where declarations of affection occasionally appeared on walls. Some messages praised beloved individuals, others expressed longing. A few were surprisingly direct. Ancient people, it turns out, sometimes felt compelled to announce their feelings publicly. Social media did not exist. Walls would have to do. You imagine a young Roman spending half an afternoon composing the perfect romantic message, only for someone else to write an unrelated advertisement beside it the next day. Love can be fragile. Public wall space even more so. The festivals are coming, and when they arrive, even the most predictable evening can become unforgettable. You drift from the quiet atmosphere of the household and imagine a different sort of night entirely. The ordinary routines of work, baths, meals, and conversations still exist, but now they are joined by something larger: excitement, expectation, celebration. Across the Roman world, festivals punctuate the calendar like bright lanterns scattered through the year. They break routines, they gather communities together. They give people reasons to pause, celebrate, and occasionally behave with a little less seriousness than usual, sometimes much less seriousness. The streets you walked earlier suddenly look different during festival season, more crowded, more colorful, more energetic. People who normally hurry between responsibilities now linger in public spaces. Decorations appear, vendors prepare for larger crowds, musicians anticipate audiences, families make plans. The city seems to inhale deeply before a celebration begins. A mainstream historical fact is that Roman religious festivals were enormously important. The calendar contained numerous holidays dedicated to various gods, public events, and civic traditions. These occasions often included sacrifices, feasts, games, public ceremonies, and communal gatherings. Religion and celebration are deeply connected. To modern observers, some festivals may appear partly religious, partly social, partly political, and partly recreational. For Romans, those categories often overlap. Life itself is interconnected. You imagine yourself stepping into the streets during one of these special occasions. The atmosphere is unmistakable. People smile more readily. Conversations grow louder. Crowds move with purpose. Something is happening, and everyone wants to be part of it. One of the most famous Roman festivals is Saturnalia, held in honor of the god Saturn. Saturnalia becomes legendary for its unusual customs. Gift-giving occurs, feasting becomes common, social rules relax, public merriment flourishes. Ancient writers describe a festive atmosphere that many modern people would recognize immediately. If the ordinary Roman evening is a pleasant conversation among friends, Saturnalia is the entire city deciding to throw a party at once. You can almost hear the noise, the laughter, the music, the endless conversation stretching deep into the night. One quirky tidbit associated with Saturnalia involves role reversals. Ancient sources describe situations where social hierarchies temporarily softened and playful inversions of status occurred during celebrations. Exactly how widespread these customs were remains debated, but the stories survived because people found them entertaining. The idea of turning everyday expectations upside down for a few days clearly appealed to Roman imaginations, and honestly, it still does. Historians still argue whether Saturnalia was truly as carefree and socially transformative as some literary descriptions suggest, or whether ancient authors exaggerated aspects of the festival for dramatic effect. Ancient writers occasionally enjoyed a good exaggeration. Modern writers occasionally do too, though naturally never historians creating sleep content, never. You continue imagining the festival streets. Food vendors enjoy excellent business, musicians find eager listeners, street performers attract large audiences. Children race through crowds with the sort of energy that makes adults simultaneously proud and exhausted. Every civilization seems to produce children capable of converting sugar into unstoppable motion. The Romans are no exception. Torches illuminate public spaces. Temples become focal points. Friends seek one another out. Families gather. Visitors arrive from surrounding regions. The city becomes a social machine operating at full capacity.
Yet festivals are not only about excitement, they also create shared memories. A celebration attended together becomes a story retold for years afterward. Remember that festival when the weather turned unexpectedly cold? Remember the year someone dropped an entire basket of figs? Remember the musician who played until sunrise? Communities are built from experiences like these. Shared moments become social glue. You think about ordinary workers, builders, craftsmen, porters, shopkeepers. For them, a festival offers something precious, a break. Not merely a pause from labor, a pause from routine. Humans need such interruptions. Without them, days begin blending together. Festivals remind people that life contains surprises, that joy deserves space, that communities matter. The Roman government understands this as well. Public celebrations can strengthen social bonds and reinforce civic identity. People who celebrate together often feel connected to something larger than themselves. Religion benefits, communities benefit. Leaders certainly hope they benefit too. A musician passes through the crowd playing a lively tune. People clap along, others sing, some dance. A few dance with considerably more enthusiasm than skill. Enthusiasm wins. It often does. You wander among the festival crowds. Everywhere you look, people are participating, not observing from a distance, participating. That may be the most important detail. Roman festivals are communal experiences. The city itself becomes involved. Everyone contributes energy. Everyone helps create the atmosphere. The celebration exists because people collectively bring it to life. As the night grows deeper, torches burn brighter. Laughter echoes through narrow streets. The ordinary city disappears beneath layers of excitement and tradition. And for a little while, responsibilities retreat into the background. Work can wait. Tomorrow can wait. Tonight belongs to celebration. Eventually, though, every festival ends. The decorations come down, the crowds disperse, the routines return. And when ordinary evenings resume, another difference becomes impossible to ignore. Not all Romans enjoy leisure in the same way, because while you have spent your evenings among workers, merchants, families, and neighbors, a completely different world exists behind the gates of wealthy Roman estates. A world where relaxation itself can become a display of status.
A world where relaxation itself can become a display of status. You have spent most of your evenings among ordinary Romans. You have walked crowded streets, visited public baths, shared simple meals, listened to storytellers, enjoyed taverns and festivals. Now imagine stepping through the gates of a wealthy Roman estate. The difference is immediate. The city noise fades behind high walls. Gardens spread across carefully planned spaces. Fountains murmur softly. Servants move quietly between rooms. The air itself seems calmer. For elite Romans, leisure often looks very different from the experiences of ordinary workers. The goals are similar: relaxation, social connection, enjoyment, but the scale changes dramatically. A mainstream historical fact is that wealthy Romans frequently owned large urban houses, known as domus, and many also maintained country villas where they could escape the pressures of city life. For the elite, leisure could become almost an art form. You enter a spacious courtyard. A pool reflects the evening sky. Columns surround carefully maintained gardens. Statues stand among flowers and shrubs. The setting feels designed to impress visitors before a single word is spoken, and that is exactly the point. Status matters. Architecture communicates status. Decoration communicates status. Even leisure communicates status. You stroll through the property. Some guests are discussing literature. Others debate philosophy. A few appear engaged in politics despite being technically at leisure. Certain Romans seem physically incapable of avoiding politics. You suspect they could begin a Senate debate while floating in a bath. Nearby, servants prepare refreshments. Guests recline comfortably while conversing. The atmosphere is elegant but not necessarily quiet. Wealthy people enjoy gossip just as much as everyone else. They simply do it beside more expensive fountains. One quirky tidbit from elite Roman life involves dining rooms designed to showcase luxury. Some wealthy hosts imported exotic animals, rare foods, and costly decorations specifically to astonish guests. Occasionally, the effort seems less focused on enjoyment and more focused on winning an invisible competition. Human beings have always enjoyed comparing themselves to one another. Ancient luxury is no exception. You observe a gathering where poetry is being read aloud. The audience listens attentively, mostly. One guest appears deeply thoughtful, another appears deeply asleep. Both maintain impressive composure. Poetry readings remain socially important among educated Romans. Literature carries prestige. Being familiar with respected authors demonstrates education and refinement. Of course, not everyone shares the same enthusiasm. Some guests clearly prefer conversation to poetry. Others prefer food to either. The eternal hierarchy of priorities remains intact. Historians still argue whether elite Romans genuinely embraced philosophical ideals about moderation and simple living, or whether many merely praised simplicity while enjoying extraordinary luxury. Ancient writers often admired modesty. They occasionally admired it from extremely comfortable villas. The contradiction did not always seem to trouble them. You move into the gardens. The evening air feels pleasant. Lanterns illuminate pathways. Water features create soft background sounds. It is easy to understand why wealthy Romans valued such spaces. Urban life can be noisy, busy, crowded. A private garden offers escape. For a little while, the wider world feels distant. Friends gather beneath shaded walkways. They discuss news from across the empire, military campaigns, trade developments, political appointments. The Roman world stretches across enormous distances, and wealthy households often possess access to information unavailable to ordinary citizens. Connections matter. Networks matter. Influence matters. Yet beneath all that status and privilege, familiar patterns remain. People laugh, tell stories, remember old friends, complain about minor inconveniences. You overhear a guest expressing frustration about the timing of a delivery. The complaint sounds surprisingly modern. The specifics change. Human irritation remains timeless. Elsewhere, musicians provide entertainment. Nothing loud, nothing overwhelming, just enough to enrich the atmosphere. The music drifts through the garden. Guests continue talking. Servants refill cups. The evening unfolds at an unhurried pace. For some wealthy Romans, leisure also includes intellectual pursuits, reading, writing, studying philosophy, corresponding with distant friends. A quiet evening might involve books rather than taverns, discussion rather than public entertainment. The options available are broader because resources are broader. Yet not all elite Romans spend their evenings contemplating great ideas. Some enjoy parties, some enjoy sports, some enjoy collecting expensive objects, some enjoy doing absolutely nothing. Wealth expands choices. It does not fundamentally alter human nature. You think about the contrast between this villa and the apartment buildings you visited earlier. The differences are real: space, comfort, privacy, opportunity. Yet both environments contain people seeking many of the same things: connection, enjoyment, relief from work, moments of peace. The forms differ, the desires remain recognizable. Outside the estate walls, the city continues its nightly rhythms. Ordinary families settle into bed, workers prepare for tomorrow, taverns gradually empty, watchmen begin their rounds.
The wealthy may enjoy special comforts, but they inhabit the same empire as everyone else. They sleep beneath the same stars. They worry about many of the same uncertainties. They live within the same vast Roman world. And that world stretches far beyond the city itself. Because tonight, while you rest comfortably in Rome, countless others across the empire are ending their days in entirely different ways. Soldiers on distant frontiers, merchants in bustling ports, farmers in rural villages, travelers on lonely roads. The Roman evening has many faces, and it is time to see them.
The Roman evening has many faces, and it is time to see them. You leave behind the gardens, fountains, and elegant villas, and allow your imagination to travel outward across the vast territories of the empire. The Roman world is enormous. At its height, it stretches across 3 continents, linking deserts, forests, mountains, coastlines, islands, and plains into a single political system. Yet, despite being connected by roads, trade routes, laws, and armies, daily life varies enormously from place to place. The evening you experience depends very much on where you happen to be. Tonight, let us wander. You begin on a frontier far from Rome itself. A line of forts stands beneath a darkening sky. Soldiers are ending their duties. The atmosphere differs from the bustling city, less crowded, more disciplined, more isolated. A mainstream historical fact is that Roman soldiers stationed on distant frontiers often spent years away from home. Forts housed thousands of troops across regions stretching from northern Britain to the Middle East. For these soldiers, evenings provide precious opportunities for relaxation. Armor is set aside, equipment is checked, meals are shared, letters are written, stories are exchanged, friendships become essential. Life on the frontier can be lonely. The men around you come from different regions of the empire, different languages, different traditions, yet service binds them together. One soldier recounts an old story from his homeland. Another describes a city hundreds of miles away. The empire becomes smaller through shared experiences. Nearby, someone attempts a joke. The joke receives polite silence. Not every performance succeeds. Ancient audiences can be ruthless. The stars above the frontier appear brilliant. Without major cities nearby, the night sky dominates everything. You can almost understand why so many ancient peoples filled the heavens with myths. Now you travel southward, far beyond military forts, far beyond city walls. You arrive in a rural farming community. The contrast is immediate. No crowded markets, no elaborate bath complexes, no endless stream of public entertainment. Instead, fields stretch into the distance. Animals settle for the night. Families gather inside simple homes. For farmers, work often follows seasonal rhythms. Harvest periods can be exhausting. Other times of year offer slightly more flexibility. Evenings remain important. A chance to rest tired muscles, a chance to reconnect with family, a chance to enjoy a brief pause before tomorrow's labor begins. Historians still argue whether rural communities preserved older local traditions more strongly than urban populations, or whether Roman cultural influences penetrated deeply into countryside life throughout the empire. The answer varies by region. The empire is too large for a single explanation. You sit beside a rural family sharing an evening meal. The setting is modest. The atmosphere is warm. Children listen to stories. Parents discuss work. Grandparents recall memories. The scene feels familiar. Whether in Rome or a distant village, people remain people.
One quirky tidbit comes from archaeological discoveries of small local shrines scattered across rural regions. These sites often blend Roman religious practices with older local traditions. Different cultures meet, ideas mix, new customs emerge. Empires influence people. People influence empires. The process works both ways. Your journey continues, this time toward a busy port city. The air smells of salt water. Ships crowd the harbor. Sailors unload cargo even as darkness approaches. Ports operate according to their own rhythms. Trade rarely sleeps completely. Merchants negotiate deals. Warehouse workers move goods. Travelers arrive from distant shores. Languages from across the Mediterranean mingle in the streets. You hear accents from places you have never visited, stories from places you may never see. For many people, evening in a port city means opportunity, business opportunities, travel opportunities, new friendships, new experiences. Every arriving ship brings possibilities. You wander along the waterfront. Lanterns reflect on dark water. The sight is beautiful, almost peaceful, until a sailor begins singing. The beauty survives. The singing is less certain. Some traditions are perhaps best appreciated from a distance. You continue eastward, then westward, then northward again. Everywhere you go, Roman evenings take different forms. Some communities gather around public squares. Others focus on family homes. Some emphasize trade. Others emphasize agriculture. Some celebrate local festivals unknown elsewhere. The empire contains extraordinary diversity, yet common threads remain: meals, conversation, friendship, stories, rest, the universal desire to leave work behind for a few precious hours. That desire connects everyone: soldiers, farmers, merchants, craftsmen, officials, travelers, even emperors. The details differ. The longing remains the same. As darkness deepens across the empire, countless lamps glow. Some illuminate luxurious villas. Others shine inside modest apartments. Others flicker within military barracks or rural cottages. Each lamp marks a life, a family, a conversation, a moment of quiet, a memory in the making. You realize that Roman history is not only the story of great events, it is also the story of ordinary evenings, millions upon millions of them. Most went unrecorded, most left no monuments, yet together they formed the fabric of daily life. And now, as darkness deepens across the empire, countless lamps begin to go out, one by one. The conversations end. The meals finish. The stories conclude. Sleep approaches, and with it comes the final chapter of tonight's journey.
The conversations end. The meals finish. The stories conclude. Sleep approaches, and with it comes the final chapter of tonight's journey. You find yourself once more in Rome. Not the crowded Rome of midday, not the lively Rome of markets and taverns, not the festive Rome of celebrations and performances. The Rome before dawn. The Rome that exists in the quiet space between one day and the next. The streets are nearly empty now. A few figures still move through the darkness. Watchmen continue their patrols. Night workers finish their duties. Travelers hurry toward shelter. But for most people, the day is over. The lamps are burning low. The city is resting. You walk through streets that only hours earlier overflowed with activity. The silence feels remarkable. Not complete silence, of course. Ancient cities are rarely completely silent. A distant footstep echoes somewhere. A dog announces its existence. A cart rattles faintly in the distance. Yet compared to the energy of the afternoon, the city feels transformed. A mainstream historical fact is that Roman daily life generally followed the rhythm of natural light. Without modern electric illumination, most people aligned their schedules closely with sunrise and sunset. Night carries a different character. Darkness imposes limits. Darkness encourages rest. Darkness slows the pace of life. You pause beneath a patch of open sky. The stars remain visible above rooftops. The same stars watched over the builders, merchants, soldiers, farmers, and families whose evenings you have shared tonight. The same stars watched over emperors. The same stars watched over ordinary laborers whose names history never recorded. For a moment, those differences seem smaller. Everyone eventually arrives here, at the end of the day, at the edge of sleep. You think back through everything you experienced, the workday ending, the crowds leaving their jobs, the baths filled with steam and conversation, the markets glowing with evening energy, the taverns alive with laughter, the family meals, the storytellers, the festivals, the villas, the distant frontiers, all of it connected by a simple idea. People need time to be human. Work matters. Responsibilities matter. Survival matters. Yet leisure matters too. Connection matters. Rest matters. Across centuries, people finish their duties and search for something beyond obligation. A meal shared with friends, a walk through familiar streets, a favorite story, a quiet conversation, a few moments of peace. One quirky tidbit from Roman archaeology comes from objects discovered in homes that reveal surprisingly personal details of daily life. Small toys, handwritten notes, household decorations, and ordinary possessions remind us that ancient people filled their lives with the same little comforts people seek today. History often focuses on the dramatic. Real life usually happens somewhere else, in kitchens, around tables, in conversations, in evenings. Historians still argue whether Romans considered leisure primarily a reward for work or an essential part of a balanced life. The surviving evidence suggests both ideas existed. Some praised discipline and productivity. Others celebrated relaxation and enjoyment. Most people probably tried to balance the two, much like people do now. The city around you grows quieter still. A window closes. A lamp goes dark. Then another. Then another. Each extinguished light marks the conclusion of another Roman day. Some people fall asleep content. Others worry about tomorrow. Some dream of opportunities. Others dream of home. Some simply dream of getting a little more sleep before sunrise. That final category may be the most relatable of all. You continue walking. The cool air feels pleasant. The stones beneath your feet hold only traces of the day's warmth. The city seems suspended between memory and anticipation. One day ending, another preparing to begin. And then, slowly, the pace softens even further. The streets become gentler. The sounds become more distant. The details begin to blur like reflections on calm water. You no longer need to hurry anywhere. There is nowhere left to go tonight. Only rest. Only stillness. Only the quiet comfort of knowing that the day is complete. So let your thoughts drift. Let the city fade into darkness. Let the last lamps become tiny stars scattered across the sleeping streets. Imagine the rooftops silver beneath moonlight. Imagine the distant murmur of a fountain somewhere beyond sight. Imagine a cool breeze moving softly through empty alleys and quiet courtyards. The baths are closed now. The taverns are settling down. The storytellers have finished their tales.
The merchants have packed away their goods. The musicians have lowered their instruments. The conversations have finally come to an end. And all across the empire, from crowded cities to lonely frontiers, from elegant villas to humble cottages, people are surrendering to sleep. The soldiers, the farmers, the sailors, the craftsmen, the children, the grandparents, the dreamers, the worriers, the optimists, the exhausted, all resting beneath the same night sky. The stars continue their slow journey overhead. The moon keeps watch. The darkness grows softer, and the world feels a little quieter with every passing moment. Take one last slow walk through those ancient streets, past the silent market, past the shuttered shops, past the homes where families sleep, past the fading glow of the final lamp. And as you leave Rome behind, allow the city to dissolve gently into the distance. The stones, the voices, the laughter, the music, the stories, all fading into the calm silence of night. You have finished your day. Rome has finished its day. Nothing more is required. Only rest, only quiet, only sleep.